It's May 7th, 1915, and the RMS Lusitania is cutting through the Atlantic. Families are laughing on the deck, kids chasing each other, while couples share drinks in the grand dining room. The ship's a floating masterpiece, elegant, massive, alive with hope. But out there in the water, hidden from view, a German U-boat is watching. Its crew is ready to act. In just 18 minutes, everything changes. Lives are lost, and the world shifts forever. What happens when one moment, one choice, sets off a chain reaction that could start a war? The Lusitania wasn't just any ship. Launched in 1907, it was a wonder of its time, one of the fastest and most luxurious ocean liners ever built. Think grand staircases, chandeliers, and cabins that felt like palaces. It was the kind of ship that made people feel unstoppable, a symbol of a brighter future. But in 1915, the world was anything but bright. Europe was caught in the grip of World War I. Germany's U-boats were turning the seas into a dangerous place, hunting ships flying enemy flags. The United States was trying to stay out of it, holding on to neutrality while the tension kept building. The Lusitania, sailing from New York to Liverpool, carried nearly 2,000 people, rich folks like millionaires, everyday families, hopeful immigrants, all unaware they were heading into a war zone. This story is about more than a ship. It's about the people who boarded it, the tragedy that struck, and the way it changed history. In this video, we're going to walk through the Lusitania's final journey, from the joy of its departure to the heartbreak of its sinking. We'll hear stories of courage and loss, and we'll look at the bigger picture, how this disaster pushed nations closer to war. Plus, there's a question that still lingers. Was the Lusitania just a passenger ship, or was there something else going on? Could its sinking have been part of a bigger plan to pull America into the fight? We're Tragic Echoes, and we're here to bring this story to life. Stay with us as we uncover the human side of this tragedy, the moments that broke hearts, and the questions that historians still argue about. I want to hear from you in the comments. Do you think the Lusitania's sinking was meant to bring America into the war? Share your thoughts, because your ideas could start a big conversation. Hit subscribe, and let's get into this incredible, heartbreaking story together. Imagine stepping into 1915. The world feels like it's holding its breath. World War I is tearing through Europe, trenches, battles, millions of lives caught in the chaos. Germany and Britain are locked in a bitter fight, and the Atlantic Ocean, once a highway for trade and travel, is now a battlefield. Germany's U-boats, their submarines, are out there, targeting ships to choke Britain's supply lines. They're not asking questions, just firing. The United States, though, is sitting on the sidelines, trying to stay neutral. President Woodrow Wilson's keeping America out of the war, but every day, that neutrality feels shakier. Into this tense moment sails the RMS Lusitania, a ship that's about to become a symbol of everything at stake. Let's talk about this ship. The Lusitania was a masterpiece, a floating city built to show off human progress. Launched in 1907 by the Cunard Line, it was one of the biggest and fastest ocean liners in the world. Picture this, from massive funnels stretching into the sky, decks that could hold thousands, and interiors that screamed luxury. First-class passengers dined in rooms with marble columns and gold-trimmed ceilings. There were libraries, smoking lounges, even a nursery for kids. The Lusitania wasn't just about getting from New York to Liverpool. It was about doing it in style. It could cross the Atlantic in under 5 days, faster than almost anything else on the water. To a lot of people, this ship felt like the future, a way to rise above the world's troubles. But in May 1915, those troubles were impossible to ignore. The Lusitania's journey wasn't just another crossing. Germany had declared the waters around Britain a war zone. They even published warnings in American newspapers, telling passengers that ships like the Lusitania could be targeted. Most people shrugged it off. After all, this was a passenger liner, not a warship. Who would attack a ship full of civilians? The confidence was high, but so was the risk, and the nearly 2,000 people boarding in New York were stepping into a world on edge. Now let's meet some of those people. The Lusitania carried a mix of folks, everyone from millionaires to working-class families chasing a better life. There was Alfred Vanderbilt, one of America's richest men, a 37-year-old heir to a fortune, known for his charm and love of adventure. He'd booked a first-class suite, traveling to England for business, brushing off the U-boat warnings like they didn't apply to him. Then there was Margaret Mackworth, a British suffragist, a woman fighting for change, traveling with her father. She was sharp, determined, and kept a journal that would later tell her story. You had families like the Cromptons, mom, dad, and 6 kids, hoping to start fresh in England. And at the helm was Captain William Turner, a seasoned sailor, tough and no-nonsense, who'd navigated these waters for years. He trusted his ship, but he knew the seas were getting dangerous. These people, from all walks of life, shared one thing: hope. Hope for a safe trip, a new beginning, or just a good time. As the Lusitania left New York on May 1st, 1915, the mood was bright. Passengers waved from the decks, music played, and the ship powered toward Ireland. But out in the Atlantic, a German U-boat, the U-20, was already on the move. Its captain, Walter Schwieger, had orders to strike. The Lusitania was heading straight into his path. What's coming next is hard to imagine. A moment that would shatter lives and send shockwaves across the world. Stick with us as we follow this journey, step by step, to uncover what happened when hope met tragedy. And let me ask you, put it in the comments. If you were boarding the Lusitania in 1915, would you have ignored those U-boat warnings? Let's keep this story going. Let's step into May 7th, 1915. The RMS Lusitania is off the coast of Ireland, just miles from safety. It's a bright afternoon, and the ship's decks are alive with passengers. Families stroll in the sunshine, kids play games, and some folks lean against the railings, watching the waves. The mood is lighter now, Liverpool's close, and the journey's almost over. But at 2:10 p.m., everything changes. A German U-boat, the U-20, spots the Lusitania through its periscope. Captain Walter Schwieger gives the order, and a single torpedo races through the water. What happens next is chaos, heartbreak, and courage, all in just 18 minutes. The torpedo hits the Lusitania on the starboard side, below the bridge. A massive explosion rocks the ship, sending passengers stumbling. Smoke and water pour in, and the ship starts to tilt. But then, seconds later, a second explosion, louder, more violent, rips through the hull. The Lusitania lurches, and panic sets in. No one knows what caused that second blast. Was it the ship's boilers? Coal dust igniting? Or something else, something hidden in the cargo hold? That question's been debated for over a century, and we'll get to it later. For now, the ship's fate is sealed. The Lusitania is sinking, and fast. Imagine the scene. Passengers scramble for lifeboats, but the ship's tilting makes it nearly impossible. The crew tries to lower the boats, but many swing wildly or get tangled. Some lifeboats spill people into the freezing Atlantic, mothers clutching children, husbands calling out for wives. Margaret Mackworth, the suffragist we met earlier, is on deck with her father. She later wrote in her journal about the moment. The ship was like a wounded animal, groaning and tilting. She grabs a lifebelt and jumps into the sea, fighting to stay afloat. Nearby, Alfred Vanderbilt, the millionaire, stays calm. He's seen giving his own lifebelt to a woman with a baby, knowing he can't swim. He doesn't make it. The Crompton family, parents and 6 kids, face the worst kind of nightmare. They're separated in the chaos, and only one, a young boy named Paul, survives. Stories like these hit hard. A mother named Avis Foley, traveling with her 2 small children, clings to a piece of debris in the water, singing to keep her kids calm as she waits for rescue. She makes it, but so many don't. Of the 1,959 people on board, 1,198 lose their lives, including 128 Americans and nearly 100 children. The numbers are staggering, but it's the personal stories that stay with you. Let's talk about the crew. Captain William Turner stays on the bridge, shouting orders to save as many as he can. He's one of the last to leave, swept into the sea as the ship goes down. Miraculously, he survives, clinging to a chair in the water for hours. Other crew members show incredible bravery. A young steward, Robert Barnes, helps load lifeboats, guiding panicked passengers even as the ship tilts further. He doesn't make it. The crew's efforts are heroic, but the sinking happens so fast. 18 minutes from torpedo to the ship disappearing beneath the waves. Compare that to the Titanic, which took over 2 hours to sink. The speed of it all leaves no time for mistakes. What went wrong? A lot. The lifeboats were a mess. Some were stuck, others launched half-empty or overturned. The ship's speed and angle made launching them even harder. And those U-boat warnings from before the voyage? They weren't taken seriously enough. Captain Turner had slowed the ship to save fuel, thinking it would keep them safer. Instead, it made them an easier target. The German U-20, after firing the torpedo, slips away, leaving the survivors struggling in the cold water. Imagine bodies and debris floating in the Atlantic, survivors crying out for help. Local fishing boats from Ireland's coast race to the scene, pulling people from the water. But for so many, it's too late. The Lusitania rests 300 feet below, a tomb for those who didn't make it. The world wakes up to news of the disaster, and the shock turns to anger, especially in America, where those 128 lost citizens become a rallying cry. This moment isn't just a tragedy, it's a turning point. The Lusitania's sinking changes how people see the war, and it's about to change history itself. Stick with us as we explore what came next, the outrage, the questions, and the secrets that might still lie in the wreck. Before we go on, I want to hear from you in the comments. Could more lives have been saved if the crew had more time or better lifeboats? Share your thoughts, because this story's not over yet. The Lusitania is gone, swallowed by the Atlantic in just 18 minutes on May 7, 1915. The water's surface is littered with debris, lifebelts, broken chairs, and the hopes of nearly 2,000 people. Survivors cling to wreckage, shivering in the cold, while fishing boats from Ireland's coast pull as many as they can to safety. But for 1,198 people, including 128 Americans and nearly 100 children, there's no rescue. The world wakes up to the news, and the reaction is immediate: shock, grief, and a growing anger that will echo far beyond the shores of Ireland. Imagine now, newspapers across America, Britain, and beyond splash the disaster across their front pages. Headlines scream, "Lusitania sunk by German submarine, and hundreds dead in Atlantic horror." In New York, where the ship began its journey, crowds gather outside newsstands, reading in disbelief. Families wait at docks for word of loved ones, hoping for miracles that don't come. In Britain, the loss of a proud Cunard liner feels like a personal wound. But it's in America where the anger burns hottest. Those 128 American deaths hit like a punch. The U.S. had been trying to stay out of World War I, but this feels different. This feels personal. People start asking, how could a passenger ship, full of civilians, be a target? Germany's U-boat campaign suddenly has a face, or rather, 1,198 faces. The outrage isn't just in the streets. It's in the halls of power. President Woodrow Wilson faces pressure to act. He sends a sharp note to Germany, demanding an apology and reparations. Germany's response? They defend the attack, claiming the Lusitania was carrying war supplies, making it a fair target. They point to their warnings in newspapers before the ship sailed. But that argument doesn't sit well with most Americans. Political cartoons start popping up, showing German submarines as monsters devouring innocent lives. One cartoon has Uncle Sam glaring at a U-boat, with the caption, "This means war." It's not there yet, but the ground is shifting. The Lusitania's sinking plants a seed. 2 years later, in 1917, the U.S. joins World War I, and many historians say this moment was the turning point. Let's zoom in on the people caught in this tragedy. Survivors like Margaret Mackworth, the suffragist, make it to shore, soaked and shaken. She later writes about the guilt of surviving when so many didn't. She describes seeing bodies in the water, people she'd dined with just hours before. Then there's Avis Foley, the mother who sang to her children while clinging to debris. She and her kids are rescued, but the trauma stays with her. She tells reporters, "I kept singing so they wouldn't be afraid, but I was terrified." For others, the story ends in heartbreak. The Crompton family, who we met earlier, loses 7 of its 8 members. Young Paul Crompton, just 6 years old, is found alone, floating on a piece of wreckage. He's taken to an Irish orphanage, his life forever changed. In Ireland, the town of Queenstown, now Cove, becomes a hub of grief. Locals open their homes to survivors, while churches and hotels turn into makeshift morgues. Volunteers work tirelessly, identifying bodies and comforting the living. One Irish fisherman, who helped pull survivors from the water, says, I'll never forget their faces. Some were praying, some were screaming. The community's kindness stands out, but the scale of loss is overwhelming. Mass funerals are held, with coffins lined up in the streets. For many families, there's no closure. Hundreds of bodies are never found. This tragedy doesn't just fade away. It changes things. The Lusitania's sinking makes the world rethink how wars are fought at sea. Rules about targeting civilian ships get sharper focus, though it's too late for those 1,198 lives. In America, Juneau, the anger fuels a wave of anti-German sentiment, pushing the country closer to war. And the questions linger. Was the Lusitania really just a passenger ship? Germany's claim about war supplies sparks debates that haven't stopped. We'll get into that in the next part. Think about this. The world was different after May 7, 1915. The Lusitania wasn't just a ship, it was a spark that lit a fire. Stay with us as we explore the mysteries and secrets that still surround this disaster. But first, I want to know what you think. Drop it in the comments. Did Germany's attack on the Lusitania justify America joining the war? Your thoughts keep this story alive. Let's keep going.